Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you. As I prepared earlier, this is our first of our industry seminars at this year's Private Hire and Taxi Monthly Expo. And the overall theme of this year's show is survival. This is why we're all here. And today's seminars and the like will all be on this topic. And if there's one person who knows all about survival and resurgence in the ever-changing industry of ours, it's our keynote speaker, Dr. James Cooper. Now, James, just to let you know, for people who don't know, is the director of the Transport and Taxi Research Partners, a full-service consulting company specialising in the analysis of on-demand transportation, taxi cabs and shuttles. James has a significant track record in delivering innovative and cutting-edge analysis for the taxi trade. City, regional, national government. He is widely published, very well respected in his field of taxi transport, social issues, rural access, and the impacts of accessibility. Now, anyone who remember, Dr. Cooper attended and spoke at our PHTM Expo 2 years ago, and we welcome him back today. So no doubt he'll give you a complete update on the changing complexion of the industry since we were last here. I wish you, can I invite Dr. Cooper on the stage and can we give him a good round of applause?
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to be back. As I like to say, I'm the amateur that listens, you're the professionals that do, and I'm very glad that you do. I'm going to start with a quick analogy, and if you remember nothing else about what I have to say today, except for the fact that I wave my arms a lot and move around, it's this. I want you to imagine that you're making a phone call. We all do it. I want you to imagine that in making that phone call, you need to phone an exchange. And for the younger of you in the audience, an exchange was the way to connect your call from one subscriber to another. And on this occasion, because we're at a point of very high demand, we don't have enough lines to connect your call. We don't have enough yellow lines to connect your call. But don't worry, your business is important to us. And we have a system in place that in 6 months will have more yellow lines and will connect your call. Doesn't that sound daft? Okay. Over the past 5 years or so, much has been said about the emergence of apps in the provision of taxi-like services. This presentation will add to that and will address some of the fundamentals of the market. And much of this message is going to be difficult. Some of it may appear perverse. You are, after all, the legal, correct face of the taxi industry, established and law-abiding. This presentation will be, needs to be, very critical for about the first half. And then we can begin to develop and identify opportunities and resurgence. So let us start with the very hardest of truths. The market has changed and will continue to do so. Change has been fundamental, structural, and irreversible. There is a significant increase in the number of providers and competitors in the market. That is a fact. And the public actually prefer the new reality. Apps are perceived by their users as good, and the image of the taxi that circulates and is promoted by some app companies is that of an old, tired industry, not the new. In and amongst this, some indications of resurgence do exist. If not resurgence today, opportunity for resurgence to come. But to achieve this, we need to adapt. We need to develop and move on. Change is very hard, and this change is particularly so. So ask yourself, am I a lifer or an innovator? Okay. At this point, thank you.
I think we've turned it off, have I?
At this point, I'll start to introduce some facts, some figures and data. And as you will hear from other people, I am American. You can hear that in the accent, right? And I'm going to present you with American data. I'll argue whether it's valid or not to come. What has happened in the last 3 years since Uber and Lyft, which is the small version of Uber, arrived in the US? This is a genuine set of data from a genuine large American city. And we see, over time, a decline in the taxi industry. I'll turn that to trend lines to take out some of the peaks. There is a genuine change in the number of trips being made by taxi. Let us be clear. This is fundamental. This is real. Percentages of about 15 to 20% amongst US cities and similar in the United Kingdom. The taxi market must recognise that Uber and its alternatives are reality, regardless of the differences in which those services are provided. In short, app-based services are here for good. Actually, it would be retrograde to lose them. The public would not forgive you. Services here will continue to impact on taxi use, and let's talk about the market share. 3 years ago, taxis in this large city carried about 55% of all vehicle for hire trips. Jump through 2 more years. 2 years ago, they only carried 38%. Last year, they were down to a quarter of all trips. Pretty big change, right? Until you start wondering what that market has done. And the market for vehicles for hire has increased. Look at the size of the pie itself. Yes, the market share is declining. That in itself is a necessary observation before we talk about innovation and resurgence. But the pie has grown. It has grown on the back of consumer preference, costs, and market innovation. Now I'll turn that into a table over time. The actual number of trips by taxi is down, the green bar. Yes, that has gone down, without a doubt. But the size of the market has grown out of all proportion. Here we have the toughest of lessons. It is absolutely necessary to understand that throughout the period, the taxi industry has remained fundamentally the same, unchanged. The vehicles remain the same. The approach to booking has changed very little. And the price of using a taxi has remained constant or grown, or gone up. Yes, the industry has asked, how safe is your driver? Who it is that is driving you? You have pointed out that the background checks applied to one industry differ to your own. And yes, regulators in some cities have taken actions that have precluded the entry or continued use of Uber and Lyft. You can point to cities where these companies have departed. But look at the same cities 6 months later, I will suggest you see them back again. None of these have really impacted well on the taxi market. Uber and its fellow TNCs are there to stay. They are widely appreciated, liked, even loved by their user. And that's not a term I would use very often. The same users that once might have liked the taxi industry. Note that trust in the Uber company, product and reliability can be greater than trust in the government department that regulates taxis. On this slide, I've added trend lines for the next 12 months, today and into the future by 12 months. If the trends remain unchanged, Uber will carry 4.5 million trips per month. Taxis will fall to under 1 million. And that is from a market that started with a total of 1.2 million taxi trips 3 years ago. The market itself has grown by 5 times. So we can ask ourselves, how is that market being captured? What is Uber doing that captures the market? Well, it's simple. They're dropping their prices, they're changing their product, they're offering something that appears to be cheaper. Here we have the price, or average price of income coming into a taxi, into the Uber, declining over the same period. Yes, drivers are earning less per trip. Take out the amount of fees that Uber take, 20%. Take out the fuel prices. And here's an interesting thing. Even with this decline in income per trip, because of the numbers of trips being made, income to the driver per trip remains the same. The capital cost of the vehicle is declining per trip. The actual income that the driver takes home, although not huge, stays the same. And let's see what that actually does to my take-home pay. In this period of time, in this city with 6,000 taxis, starting 3 years ago with 20,000 Uber, to its current level of 40,000 Uber. That's a doubling in 2 years. Driver income per trip increased. Driver income take home increased. Uber income just shy of $8 million. That's real dollars per real month for one city. Reducing the fare impacted on Uber in a positive way. We'll come back to that in a few seconds. But I think we need to stop and take breath. In summary, realizing that the taxi is no longer the dominant or even the preferred mode of vehicle for hire takes some doing. but it is necessary for us to move forward. Here's when we begin to talk about the opportunities and the home truths. The market has changed fundamentally and irreversibly. The extent of competition has increased to the point where 5 out of 6 trips is being taken by a vehicle that is not a taxi. The defined markets that we rely on are no longer certain. And not just to be critical of the industry. Many of the rules and regulations on which the taxi industry has survived and been based may no longer be appropriate. This is as much a challenge to the regulator as it is to the taxi industry. But the market has expanded significantly, and opportunities arising from that exist that may not have been available before Uber entered the market. None of this need mean that the market is lost. The TNCs are showing us that a new approach has created a significant new demand. Okay, let's sum up on the moving parts. The first of which may appear self-evident. TNCs are not remaining static. Uber is not remaining the same. It is not the same today as it was 2 or 3 years ago. It is not the same today as it will be tomorrow. The only comforting fact we have is that the TNC, the Uber and its parallel companies, are in constant evolution. Dynamism within the market provides them with opportunity in the places where they are prepared to move, from which the traditional taxi industry may learn. Of the places we've looked so far, 2 areas are perhaps appropriate for additional scrutiny. The first relates to price elasticity of demand, and I'll talk about that shortly. The second relates to places that the TNCs perform badly, one of which relates to airport ground transportation, and we can talk about that if we have the time. Product differentiation may allow us to move on. Immediate use of spare capacity may allow us to create new markets. The latter might be said to include food, parcels, and even kittens and ice cream. I kid you not. Uber ice cream really does exist, as does Uber kitten. That might scratch. And then there's the app. What it allows. Now, you might have heard the term surge. I'm sure you have. Surge is forwarded by our friends at Uber. I use that term lately. To allow the company, in their words, to match supply to demand. They put up the fares at points where they suggest excess demand exists. Brings out more drivers, encourages people to supply. And over the period of about 3 months, we've mapped the costs multiplier by Uber and Lyft. This, by the way, is nearly 3 times base fare. And if you're interested, the name of surge in the United States has changed. It's now called upfront pricing. That's it. But what is actually happening doesn't bear out the claim. The demand does not peak purely at points where surge exists. Demand continues to be high throughout the day, and from about 10 o'clock onwards, when surge falls, actual numbers of trips being made by taxi remain high. I would be cynical here and suggest surge is not a method of purely meeting demand. It is the method of maximising profits at a time when passengers' demand is inelastic. When you get off a train and you will pay whatever it takes to get a taxi or an Uber. Taxis, of course, can't take advantage of this, but Uber can and does. Aggressive, monopolistic pricing. And the technology. The technology has developed and created a meteoric rise in the number of trips being made. And the major factor which appears apparent is the rise in the popularity of apps, is the extent to which demand was unrealised. We are complicit in this. We have lived for the last 20 years with the idea of significant unmet demand, without having taken the time or the effort to realise how much larger that demand was to its measurement. Regulators, academics, we've failed the industry. And we failed the industry by not stating the extent to which demand exists or could exist. Technology itself goes way beyond the visage, the outward appearance of the app, whether it is the version seen by the passenger or the driver. And it's worth concentrating here on the use of the technology and its data streams in the analysis of the market. This allows smart companies to manipulate demand, manage demand. And it is these elements where the modern app company has the data, knows the data, predicts better than pretty well all taxi companies. And if we're honest, better than any regulator. The inability of the traditional industry to come anywhere close to the knowledge of the new market entrant is of significant loss to the taxi industry. In short, we have that information, and to not use it is a loss and a shame. To be able to collect the data and not do so is a fundamental problem that this industry faces today. Beware of the app that simply imitates Uber or Lyft. Beware of something that appears to do the same without providing you with the data that would allow you to develop your market. Even now, even today, to find a comparable app, with the distinct exception of those here in this room today, we fail 99 times out of 99. And let's not even begin to talk about accessibility, about opportunity, in a place where we ourselves cannot or do not offer it. Precisely here, it is the backroom opportunities of the apps. To have a booking app is absolutely and genuinely necessary. It is a prerequisite, a necessary condition, but not a sufficient one to save the market. Here the issue really relates to the actual use made of market information arising from your app, not simply its outward appearance. And to reiterate, to simply mimic the booking app and dispatch functions of your competitors is not enough. It will increasingly become apparent that the true benefit of apps relate to the location services and passenger data that may be collected and applied. Okay, we're all feeling a bit negative now. So let's perhaps suggest that there is opportunity. Uber and Lyft are inevitable. It may not be avoided, we cannot prevent it, and if we choose to wait for Uber to die, may I suggest we are waiting in vain. That the taxi market can and should grow alongside the TNCs to capture and develop those 4 million additional trips per month is possible. An opportunity to be flexible, accept and realise benefits from, among other things, price competition and competition on the grounds of quality. Now, I'm not saying drop your prices and you'll survive, but I am saying there are markets where that is a benefit to you. Look at some of the app offerings out there that allow for and promote differing fares to different market segments. Consider the fact that after 10 in the morning, your market becomes much more elastic, much more able to benefit from price competition. And if we look at the inverse of that, flexibility of fares upwards before 10 o'clock will make you a profit. I'm only going to touch on a few final things. I have no doubt that the taxi market is as good as your competitors on the TNC side. I have no doubt that your vehicles can be and are every bit as good as our friends from Uber. Actually, your drivers know where they're going most of the time. You don't have to rely on GPS most of the time. Your vehicles should be there in this market segment. Your vehicles should be able to take some of the 4 million additional trips per month that your TNC competitors have created. And I think the opportunity for growth will lie with your ability to be flexible, accept and realise the benefits of matching and developing alongside Uber and continuing to offer better services. I'm going to leave you with a final note. While there are clear differences between the approaches of your cities, regions, countries, your competitors will continue to outsmart you until you begin to outsmart them. Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. James Cooper. Now, before I throw any questions to Mr. Cooper, there is one question which we got in our office last week, which I'd like to direct so people know any question they'd like to ask, Dr. Cooper will answer. And that is, you talk about this US business model. Why is that relevant to the UK, if at all? Because we're in Milton Keynes, we're not in Seattle.
Yes.
And just before you answer that, Dr. Cooper, I'm now going to go in the audience, and anyone who puts their hands up, I will then take questions from that person.
Okay.
Dr. Cooper.
Yes, Uber is American. 3 years ago, even 2 years ago here, I would have said to you, beware, Uber's coming. And you wouldn't have believed me. But they're here. Don't rely, now let me rephrase that. If your reliance upon Uber being different here, not being able to deliver services here, is the reason that you believe they're not a competitor or will not make a big change to your market. You need to be damn sure that you're right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cooper. Now, the first question I've got here, I'm very fortunate to have Amir Hassan from Minicabit. Want to ask you a question? 1 second.
Hi there. I was just asking about Uber's pricing. If you look at what they did in China, they burnt about $1 billion and they pulled out and prices went up. It seems clear that in quite a few of their 100 cities that they are artificially subsidising driver pricing quite substantially. How sustainable is that as they move towards an IPO? What does that mean for us in the UK, for our athletes?
I think there are probably two answers for that. The first one is, what does it mean for drivers? The driver income is decreasing per trip, but total driver income is not decreasing. Actually, it's increasing. Dropping prices competitively is going to make Uber dominant in the market. In the long term, when private investment capital disappears, at that point Uber will have to reduce some of its subsidies across markets. But I would suggest by that point, it won't need the investor money, it will be making a profit.
Okay, our next question. Anybody? We've got Dr. Cooper here, please. Yes, we've got one over here, 1 second. Okay.
Would you agree with me that one of the biggest problems is with our regulators, nationally and locally, not to help the taxi and private hire trade? Or should I put it, they don't understand the relevant problems of the market?
As a regulator, yes, many regulators do not help the market. But beware of the help that you ask for or expect. At this point, the certainty of our regulations are based on two things. Three things if you include price control, quantity control. We are either at a point or will be approaching a point soon when those two aspects harm the taxi industry and stop helping the taxi industry. We may be heading to a point where deregulation becomes a real opportunity rather than an hindrance.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, any more questions for Dr. Cooper? He is here to help and here to give you advice and to give you his opinions. In fact, we have one over here. 1 second. This is from Shane of iCabby.
Thanks, Dr. Cooper. Just on interesting stuff, and we've heard a lot of this in various sources, and obviously TNCs get all of the coverage, good or bad. Is there a role for the audience here and the fleets that are in cities all over the world, so there's an existing infrastructure there, to make greater use of that? And would you have any views on that, which doesn't necessarily need the regulator, which I agree is stifling growth?
Interesting to think the opportunity exists when we start working together, when we start talking with a single or unified voice. That opportunity exists. The opportunities that the apps give you depend on your market, depend on where you see yourself in the future. I think a trans company, a multi-company opportunity exists, but I don't think it's being delivered well. We're told about local national. Great presentation by AutoCAD. Great opportunity presented by AutoCAD, and actually about 6 others in this room, 6 other countries, to put yourself on a single platform. I think if you have any intent or any desire to have markets coming to you, it is not an opportunity, it is a necessity that you appear on one of the apps, and it's up to you to work out which one's going to survive. To appear on the price comparison sites, I think that is essential. I came to Milton Keynes by train. I got all of the taxi apps on my phone. I got Uber and I got Get. So as I say, all of the taxi apps. you should take offence at that because there are more, but I'm not going to download them. I'm not going to end up with 30 taxi cab apps on my phone. That's daft. I hope I will come back to Milton Keynes, but I'm never going to come back and look for a taxi in the way that I did today. I'm not going to download a Milton Keynes taxi app. I'm going to use a national or an international consolidator. And you all have the opportunity to do that. Whether it's marketing yourself through to a destination, or joining a price comparison, or joining an international app. I believe those last two are the way forward. I think it's essential.
Okay, sorry about that, I was just speaking in the back there. I've got a question here from Mr. Jevon of Lewis County Cars, which is Hackney Carriers. 1 second.
Quick question. You said collect and use the data that you get from your app. What sort of data and how are we supposed to use it?
Trip data will give you origin and destination by time of day. It can be used to provide you with peaks and troughs in your market, which you probably think you know. It will allow you the opportunity to identify markets which are elastic and those which are inelastic. And depending on how your authority defines your pricing, you may either compete on price to markets that will give you a positive response to that change, or compete on quality to markets that are inelastic. This is an important tool. When you start working out where your market can be developed, we're talking about segmentation, we're talking about opportunities that exist in other forms of transportation for which the small passenger vehicle is an ideal carrier. I'm not saying everybody should carry hamburgers in the back of their seat, but I am suggesting that the market is not a single, unified, homogeneous product. It is lots and lots of different people making different trips. Some you may wish to maintain for social reasons, some of which the council, the government, or local authority may wish you to maintain for the right social reasons. By the way, I'm told that I'm a socialist in America, as an insight.
Okay, James, I've got two final questions for you, and just to let everyone know that James will be back here at 2 o'clock-ish for our Q&A forum, because we're running slightly behind time. But I've got a question over here from Jason, who's got a mixed fleet in Manchester from Nexus.
When you looked at the data from the US and you saw that the TNCs had caused quite substantial market growth, have you seen any data from the UK, and do you think it'd be a similar case in the UK? Because with having the private hire market, I don't think there'd be as much unmet demand before the TNCs came.
I sometimes get asked, yes, I have seen the data, yes, I did, it's not simple answers. Uber is not successful in cities that have got a good taxi fleet. They've got a good private hire fleet. They have not been as successful there in developing the markets in places compared to places that have got, frankly, rubbish taxis, which is most of the USA.
Okay, right, I've got one final question for you, then I have to wrap it up because I'm afraid we're running behind for our next seminar. But I say, James, we'll be back at 2 o'clock. One quick question.
Doctor, a simple question, I hope. It's clear Uber's making a loss. How long can they sustain this loss for? I mean, obviously we're all going to put up a fight against them. Have we got a time frame of how long we're playing with?
Longer than you've got money.
It was a short answer. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, can I thank Dr. Cooper again for giving us this interview. And thank you also to Please, so ladies and gentlemen, can I welcome on stage Craig Haravi from Central Cars Morley of Leeds, who has got a 100 car fleet of private hire.